So you've decided you want a second rabbit. Where do you go from there? Having two rabbits is honestly one of the most enriching, beneficial things you can do. But if you do it wrong, it could potentially be a really terrible situation. Here's a list of things I recommend you do before you even consider getting your second rabbit. I think having two rabbits is obviously great, and I honestly don't see the point of adopting a single rabbit when it's so clear how much they thrive on a social relationship and companionship from their own species. However, even though there's no good reason to buy a single rabbit, I think when you already have a single rabbit, there are plenty of valid reasons why you haven't gotten a second rabbit yet. But if you have made the decision that having a second rabbit is right for you, here's where to start. First, set up a separate space. The goal is, once your rabbits are bonded, that they can live together. And honestly, having a bonded pair of rabbits isn't that different than having a single rabbit. However, it's important to note that rabbits don't come pre-bonded, and the bonding process can be pretty long. When you first get your rabbit, I highly recommend doing a 30-day quarantine in a different area of the house. So I would make sure you have a space set up that you can have a completely different room set up with an adequate rabbit space. After the 30-day quarantine, it's best to have your rabbits in a setup where they can see each other but not touch each other, and eventually you're going to want to move it so that they can touch and be next to each other but still obviously not be in the same cage. So for this, I think X-Pen setups are really well. But if you have something like a free roam rabbit, you're going to have to make some changes not only to your current rabbit situation, but also some changes so when you get your second rabbit, you both are prepared. The next thing is to buy double of everything. Now, bonded rabbits spend a lot of time together. Half the time, they're drinking out of the same water bowl, peeing in the same litter box, and sharing the same toys. But there's other times where one could potentially be territorial over something. So it's always good to have two of everything. 2 water bowls, 2 litter boxes, 2 hides, 2 toys, everything like that. So it's a good thing before you even bring your second rabbit home that you already have doubles of everything prepared for their bonded lifestyle. Also, when you first get your rabbit home before they're bonded, you also want to make sure that both rabbits have everything they need and you're not skimping out on anything. The next is to take time and to find a really good place, not only to get your rabbit, but also to refer to if you have issues bonding. I think YouTube and other social media platforms are absolutely amazing for getting good information, but when it comes to direct help with your issues in bonding, it's not going to be ideal. Even if you DM me pictures of what your rabbit is going through, there's only so much I can do through a screen. If you have someone local to your community that you can constantly ask for advice and just have someone else to make sure what you're doing is okay, it really helps. Also, where you get your rabbits is so important. I know sometimes we just want to get our second rabbit so quickly that we don't consider these things, but if you get a rabbit that's not healthy and they pass away or potentially spread something to your first rabbit, that would just be devastating. Also, it's so important to make sure that you're supporting good places. There's so many great rabbit rescues out there because sadly, people don't know how much work rabbits are when they get them. So I think that you'll have great finding a rabbit from a rescue, but if you decide to go through a breeder, especially a good one, note that there'll probably be a couple months wait, so make sure you get on those waiting lists early. Also, ask if you can do bunny bonding. It's probably a little bit unlikely now with the RHD2 virus going around, so most places don't want you to bring rabbits to meet them. But potentially in the future, you definitely could do this, even if shelters don't necessarily offer bunny dating because they aren't super specialized in rabbits. For the most part, if you're able to talk to some people and see if this is something you could set up, they're usually very accommodating. Also, if you find someone rehoming a rabbit, or maybe someone is just very involved in the rabbit community, you can reach out to them and ask them to put the word out, just so they can see if there's any rabbits that would match your situation. The fourth thing is definitely the most important. If you take nothing else from the video, take this. And the fourth thing is to bulk up your vet funds. First of all, bonding is quite stressful, and stress is a great way to reintroduce old illnesses. If you have rabbits that have struggled with GI stasis or maybe UTIs or any other illnesses like that in the past, it's very possible that if the bonding process becomes overly stressful, you could re-trigger something. Also, when you're bringing a new rabbit into your home, it's potential that either they already have some illnesses or they could potentially spread something to your new rabbit. So be prepared, and it would probably be most ideal if you can get the second rabbit that you're purchasing to a vet just to do a wellness checkup before you even start the bonding process. Also, once your rabbits are bonded, you still need to have double the vet funds. If one rabbit gets sick, it's very likely that they've already spread it to the other rabbit. So you're going to be taking 2 rabbits to the vet, so it's really important to make sure that you have double the vet funds and are prepared. Also, worst case scenario, if something goes wrong during bonding and one rabbit gets seriously injured, you never want to be in the position where you can't afford a vet when your rabbit really needs the help, so make sure you're prepared on that end. Number 5 is one of the most important things you can do to make sure that your rabbits have a successful bond, and that's starting to prepare a neutral area. People always talk about bonding in a neutral area, but honestly, when you've had rabbits, especially super spoiled rabbits that pretty much have free roam of your entire house, it's hard to find a space that's truly neutral. Decide where you want the neutral area to be and start prepping it immediately. Stop your rabbit from having access to it just so you're preparing it. Also, if you have free roam rabbits who's free roaming your entire house, this would be a great time to section off a room for your new rabbit to move into to feel comfortable. And if you're even planning to move your rabbits into a rabbit room setup or something like that, you might want to hold off for a little bit just so that they can move in together so no rabbit feels overly territorial over the space. He's just obsessed with my boots right now. The 6th thing is to get your first rabbit used to a new schedule. When you bring your second rabbit home, you're going to have to allot your time so that you have double the time to do free roam time, double the time to do litter box changes, and double the time to clean cages. This likely means that your first rabbit isn't going to get the same amount of free roam time as they used to. For example, if you have a separated play area that you used for free roam and now you have 2 rabbits, you're going to have to split the time that they each get to use it. So it's really good if you can make these preparations in advance to make the change a little bit more gradual rather than a lot of things happening at once. Number 7 is to pick a good time to get your second rabbit. I know you might feel pressured to get a second rabbit ASAP, especially with a lot of YouTubers pushing so strongly that rabbits need to live in pairs. But please remember, more important than getting your rabbit a companion soon, it's important that you go about it the right way. And this might not be the time. Honestly, bonding is a lot of work and a huge time commitment. I like to allot 3 months for a successful bond. The first 30 days should be a 30-day quarantine for your second rabbit. This is a chance before they really even get to meet. Then I think it takes about 30 days, give or take, for you to go through the actual bonding process. This includes first letting them have cages next to each other and then having cages close to each other, swapping litter boxes, having limited interactions, and then by the end of the 30 days, they should eventually transition into their permanent habitat. And in the next 30 days, you're going to have to doing very close monitoring and superstition, but you're going to need very close supervision just to make sure that there's not any power dynamics forming. With a successful bond, it's important that you nip these issues early in the butt, because if you're not doing it properly, you're going to have a lot of issues in the long run. I also see a lot of people trying to rush the bonding process. For example, if you have 2 weeks off for your Christmas break and that's the only 2 weeks that you have and you want to get them bonded in that time, it might work out, but it also might not. And when it's not working out and you're trying to force a bond, you can make it permanently so that it never works out. Remember, when you're first bonding 2 rabbits, you have a clean slate, but the more and more you mess up, and don't feel too bad if you mess up because you're bound to do it, but the more and more you mess up, the more and more history you're adding to their bond. And eventually it can get so bad that these 2 rabbits are never going to get along. So it's important that you go through the bonding process during a time that you have a lot of free time and are not overwhelmed, because bonding is a pain in the butt. Now, I want to do a whole nother video all about picking out the best companion for your first rabbit, but that's a huge factor to how successful your bonding process is. I know these things can sound very overwhelming, but honestly, I think the rabbits being bonded together is completely worth it. Any amount of time, effort, and probably tears that I put into them bonding is so incredible, because every single day they get to have a lifelong companion and friend. When it comes to picking a second rabbit, I feel like no one ever really talks about this, which is why I want to make a dedicated video. But some things to consider are the age. I know a lot of people like to get rabbits that are the same age because they're going to have similar energy levels and they can age together and pass together, because When one rabbit passes, that's really hard on the other. However, I highly recommend getting rabbits that are a couple years apart. This means that they're going to go through puberty at different points in their life. And puberty is a huge thing that changes up the dynamics of the relationship. So what usually happens is when you have a younger rabbit and an older rabbit, the older one is dominant, and then after a couple years, as the older one gets even older and the younger one kind of gets into their prime, the dynamics usually shift a little bit. Another thing that really helps your chances is if you can get siblings. A lot of people have actually been able to get even half siblings of rabbits from different litters and have had really successful times bonding them. I think animals are so much more intelligent than we can ever imagine. So if you did get your first rabbit from a breeder or from a shelter and there's any way you can get a rabbit that's related to them, I think that can greatly increase your chances. Also, everyone discusses this, but male and female pairs have the highest compatibility. And then after, people say it's males to males and then females to females. I don't know where they get these stats, but maybe it has some truth to it. And another thing to consider when getting your second rabbit is breed. And more than breed, really the size. It's really good if you can have rabbits who are similar sizes, only because they're a little bit more evenly matched if they do get into a fight. Also, with rabbit personalities, I feel like the opposites attract rule works really well, the same way in people. I think when you have two rabbits that are very similar personalities, they kind of just get on each other's nerves. I don't know, I might be biased because I hate friends who are exactly like me, so maybe I'm self-projecting, but those are some things to consider. Again, detailed video coming soon. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, I hope I'm not pressuring you guys too much. If you're not on board to get a second rabbit right now, I completely understand. And honestly, I think the best decision for your rabbit is doing what's best for you. If you rush into something that you're not prepared for and it ends up backfiring, that's really not ideal for anybody. So just make sure you're taking your time and doing good research. I also have an entire video about why it's better to have a single rabbit. A little bit out of character for my channel, but I love giving you guys the entire perspective, and I think there's a lot of negatives to having a bonded pair. So I highly recommend watching that video before you make your decision. Okay, that's it for me. You've been in 2 outros, buddy. Oh, look at those pretty eyes. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Bye.